Hi, I'm Garry Meier from WLS Radio.
And I'm Roe Conn. We're on People in Perspective next, right here on RBTV.
Don't adjust your set. It really is fuzzy. So this is what RBT is all about.
TV. RBTV.
Hello, welcome to a 30-minute People in Perspective. Across from me are two of Chicago's funniest people, Roe Conn and Garry Meier. They hold the drive time slot on WLS 890 AM from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. They're here to discuss their show, their competition, their station, and AM radio in general. Let's start with some background. Now, Roe, I know you started out behind the scenes in television, working with Walter Jacobson, some other shows. How did you get on the air at WLS?
Well, I actually started before I was in television in radio at WMAQ as a producer, and somehow ended up on the air as like a sidekick producer there. Then I went to television for a while, and I was hired to do a weekend talk show at WLS based on what I had done at WMAQ, and everything just sort of developed out of that.
Good answer, good answer.
Thank you.
Is it true you used to be a DJ, a music DJ?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, I was just admiring the fact that your cups and candles match. I've never been on a show where the cups and the candles match. That's very nice.
The whole color scheme.
A DJ? Yeah, I guess I was.
So how did you get up to talk radio?
Yeah, up to. I like that. Up to talk.
Yeah, well,
that's good.
You are smart. What's your name?
Scott Zach.
Scott. We all aspire to stop playing records and start talking. That if you have any weight that you want to throw out there, you want to just not play records, because any monkey can sit there and play a record. I'll tell you that right now. And you know you're right across from, if you didn't know this, but I think you do, you're right across from Brookfield Zoo.
No, I never noticed it.
Several monkeys just heard that, and they're on their way downtown to apply for some jobs.
Including Binti, because Binti knows she's
That's
very
right,
media
she lives right
savvy.
next
Yeah.
door.
You're right next to a hero here.
She's had the influence.
Okay, what was the question?
How did you get up to WLS, the path?
I drove down the Dan Ryan. I got off on Lakeshore Drive. Well, I had been at WLS. Do you have to be serious with this? Because
No.
I can if you want. But
Funny's good.
yeah, you're right. When you see this, you go, why aren't they funnier? I mean, I'm going to switch right now because I want to see what's on the big channels. I was at WLS 10 years ago for 5 years, and then a lot of stuff happened after that, and now I'm back.
Okay.
And without taking up the whole half hour of that, let's just go to the next question.
Okay. Since Chicago is such a big radio market, and it's had a lot of great names, did you have any radio influences, not just in Chicago, but anywhere? Either one?
I had never listened to radio once before I worked on it.
He
Never
thought it
heard
would steal his soul.
Yeah.
Any big names you remember?
Well, I have admitted on the air that Larry Lujak, when I was growing up, was on the air, and he seemed to be the biggest deal in town.
So why'd you pick a fight with him then?
And then he picked a fight with us being the mouse in my pocket. I always carry one. But actually, he was a big deal in the 60s, and then I get into radio, and I meet the guy. I actually end up working with the guy, and here's the thing. You don't want to meet people that you idolize, because 9 times out of 10, it's a disappointment.
Yeah, that's really true.
And he was kind of a disappointment when I met him, and I just decided that no more idols for me. Oh, yeah, the Golden Fleece that I prayed to every Sunday, but we don't want to get into that.
Does Larry live in Brookfield? Will he be able to see this?
Oh, yes.
Because he'll come right down here and kick your butt.
That's
for saying
right.
that.
Gonna kill these two guys.
When you two were in college, you were not majoring to be in broadcasting, right?
Right.
You were studying to dig up dinosaur bones, right?
Well, human bones. I
Human
was
bones.
studying
He
anthropology.
was a grave
yeah.
robber.
Yeah, but actually it was more of like a primitive culture study, which has worked out perfectly for talk radio for me.
And I was in pharmacy school, which actually did work out great when I got into radio, because so many people are on pills in this business.
Let's go to the daily show you do every day. Which is kind of repetitive, but has there been any change from your drive time show to your afternoon show? Have you changed the format at all?
Well, it's for my show, going from 2 hours
from
to
your 2 hours to your 4-hour
it's
show.
2 hours longer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice as long.
Yeah, and with a partner, it's a little different, you know, but it's a lot more fun actually with a partner.
Is your content different?
Yeah, a little bit. It's a
Okay.
little bit. I mean, it kind of.
Lighter subjects?
Well, what it does is it blends what Garry has done throughout his career with what I've done throughout my career. Gary's done primarily comedy. I've done comedy and politics, and so we're kind of blending the two together. And so you just have to listen. It's the only way I can describe it.
Do you like to listen to talk, or do you just like to listen
Both,
to music?
depending on the mood.
Because you're one of those guys who's still at that age where it's all music all the time. You know, you just like to headbang on the steering wheel.
Don't drive yet. January.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, but when you get that license, start banging your head on the steering wheel.
Will do.
Because you have to.
Where do the topics come from you talk about every day?
Usually just kind of make them up. No.
And including all the content as well. We just make up everything that we say.
We talk about whatever's in the news, whatever we feel is.
Well, how do you prepare before you go on air?
Well, I know you have some tape of our producer talking to you, and he says that on this tape that we prepare an hour before the show. That, I think he's selling us very short. We're up half the night on the phone talking about the next day's show.
Yeah.
And just going over topics and watching television and just looking at basic pamphlets that have a lot of information in them that could be useful to the listener that we have.
What is really true about this is that everything you do for the 20 hours you're out of the studio goes into the 4 hours that you're in the studio.
So you talk about personal experiences.
Well, you're talking about,
et cetera.
your personal experience, but also how they blend with what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to just talk about yourself for 4 hours.
Yeah. But if it mixes.
Oh, I mean, Gary wants to talk about himself for 4 hours, but I think, we got to talk about it.
Because I'd rather do that than go to a therapist.
Yeah.
Does the station
Cheaper.
ever give you a topic that you have to talk about? Not just something that's really big in the news, but do
Like
they
you
ever
say
say
you
you
had
need
no.
to talk
I think
about
they
this?
would prefer we talk about gay marriages most of the time, but we're not interested.
In marrying
Seriously.
ourselves.
So I think you answered this already. So there's no script. It's
No.
just a basic outline.
They let you do what they think you should do.
Okay, so why don't we do a day, since you're not really early in the morning, really not really late at night, you got a nice time, but you're not working 9 to 5. So what's a day in the life of either one of you?
Well, I
This'll be
help sick people in the morning before I go to work, and Roe just sleeps.
Yeah.
He gets up at noon.
About 12:30.
Yeah, and then heads over to the station, has lunch, and then a quarter to 2, he's kind of stumbling into the studio going, "What are we going to talk about today? Gay marriages?" And I said, "No." That last time he mentioned it, and we end up. It's just, this is not the kind of thing that you either can do it or you can't do it. It seems, and once you get into a groove with it, it just kind of takes on its own energy, and you either know what you're doing or you don't, and you can pretty much tell by listening to the radio who does and who doesn't. It's just the nature of the beast, and those that don't get weeded out pretty quickly. It's a wavelength. It's a state of mind. You go in there, and it either works very
Or it
well,
doesn't.
or it's very clumsy.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go to our first break. When we come back, we're going to have an interview with their producers, and we'll talk about WLS and AM radio in general.
That's right.
Hi, welcome back to People in Perspective. Well, I was down at the station in late October. I interviewed producer Todd Ronczkowski.
My title is the producer for Roe Conn and Garry Meier. But my job is to make sure that the guys are very well informed, that they know what they're going to be talking about before the show starts, to give them as much information and material about things that are relevant. I started at WARG, which is an educational radio station at Argo Community High School. I worked there for 4 years in their program while I was in high school, and the day after I graduated high school, I went to Joliet in search of a job in broadcasting. I went to 3 radio stations on the same day with a resume and tape in hand, and I ended up walking into a radio station who had just let somebody go. I started with Don Wade and Roma as their morning technical producer. During that time period, about a year and a half ago, Roe Conn was doing middays right after Don and Roma, and I worked as his producer and technical producer for a two-hour midday show that he did. And eventually there was an opening in the afternoons that I wanted really bad, so I interviewed for the job to be Roe and Gary's producer.
Okay, so you followed them up, basically.
Right.
Okay. How much control over the content of the show do you have? You said you did some research, but do you tell what they're going to talk about for the day?
Well, we meet before each show for about an hour, and we mull through the different topics and different news stories that are going on, and I get as much as I possibly can.
Okay.
And then we break it down during that hour meeting that we have of the stories that we think would most affect our listeners.
Is this what you want to be? You want to be a producer? Are you looking to get on air? Or?
I eventually would like to be on the air.
Okay. But for now, this is fun.
Yeah, this is fun. It's something new every day.
There's a bunch of people running around, so who else is behind the scenes of this show?
I have a technical producer who sits in that chair. Marianne is the technical producer today. She runs the controls for the board. I have a senior producer. His name is Keith Spence, and he just kind of oversees everything that goes on as far as producing goes throughout the whole station. Jim does the news. He has eye contact with Roe and Garry when he does his newscast and his news headlines at the top and the bottom of the hour. As far as traffic goes, Lonnie Tyler, our traffic guy, is at the Shadow Broadcast headquarters on Clark Street. And Shadow Broadcasting does a number of traffic reports for a number of different radio stations throughout the metropolitan area.
How far does WLS reach?
I believe we reach into 38 states and Canada in the nighttime hours, usually just after 4 or 5 p.m. And, I mean, up into Canada and down far south is Florida. Wow. In the later hours of the evening, we have calls that come from Florida. We've even had mail that has gotten here via the Netherlands.
What's the difference between AM and FM radio?
The difference is if I'm working on an FM signal, it's great. If I'm not, it sucks. And right now I'm on an AM signal, so AM is great. AM is, at this point...
What? Wait, what was that?
If I'm on an FM station, FM's great.
If you're on an AM station, AM's great.
AM's great.
All right.
And I said I'm not on an FM signal, so AM's great right now. And
But different in formats or whatnot?
the whole deal right now is AM, because of the fidelity that it doesn't do music much anymore. So either have news, talk, sports, or whatever.
Spoken word format.
Yeah.
Right, and FM basically is music because of the fidelity, and that's where it breaks down now.
Okay.
But the cool thing about being on AM is on AM you get broad reach.
Yeah.
And FM, you get downtown penetration because it goes through the buildings better than AM does.
Yeah.
But on AM we get to reach 8, 9 states during the day and half this continent at night. So FM doesn't do that. FM, no matter what, you're going 60, 70, 80 miles radius.
Okay, but format-wise, WLS tried simulcasting on FM, then it tried a whole new talk radio format. So was there a reason why it was a failure?
Oh,
Well-
bro, you take this. I wasn't there when it was a failure.
Yeah, you have a couple hours. What they did is they made a real basic marketing mistake, which was they used the same call letters to try to do 2 different things. It was kind of like the new Coke.
Yeah.
You don't call something WLS if it's not WLS. We spent 7 years prior to that point building up something, or 6 years building up something that would be known as WLS. And then they split it up with kind of a sort of WLS, but supposed to be faster, hipper.
Yeah.
And it never really worked out. I mean, people
And
want...
they were similar enough in that they were both talk. This is, as a listener I'm speaking now, before I went there. I couldn't tell who was on which band.
Yeah.
Without really thinking about it, because it was like, it's talk, it's WLS, I don't know.
Yeah.
Get back to me when you don't have
So
2 things.
a marketing mistake.
It's a big marketing mistake.
But now that the new country radio station, Kicks Country, that's a success, or?
You'll have
doing
to ask
well.
Go ahead and
them.
ask. Go ahead and ask.
Have
him.
you listened to it?
No, I don't
Okay,
like
there's your
country
answer.
music. Oh.
Well, you know what? That might as well be another company, another deal. We have no real connection with it anymore. It's downstairs from us physically, but we don't have any connection with it. That's its own deal, and I don't know what the whole country thing right now is going through, like music in general, is going through a big lull. There isn't really anything that's lighting everybody up.
Yeah.
So country and all those formats, all music formats seem to be taking this curve down.
And it wasn't
right
the
now.
right time to bring in a new station.
Well, they thought it was, I guess. But again, that isn't our concern because we're
We're on
doing
talk
the
radio.
AM and talk.
Okay, going back to talk radio, how is WLS different from WGN, AM 1000? What's the different format? Any differences?
Probably the biggest difference between WLS and WGN is that we're actually conscious when we're doing the show, which is...
Yeah, and we don't give directions to the airport every 5 minutes.
And I can't stand Bob Collins.
Well, right there, you've again pretty much answered the question because their audience is a much older audience.
Yeah.
Most of their audience is over 55.
WGN.
Yeah, and there's really no need for you to listen as a 15-year-old
Yeah,
because it's
definitely.
not offering you what you need. And they have made quite a fortune on that and continue to do well in that demographic.
Okay, so when did talk radio become big?
Talk radio became big probably about, well, it's been big different times throughout the last 25 years, but its most recent resurgence is about 1990 on, and Rush Limbaugh takes a lot of credit for that. And I think rightfully so, because what he did is he took sort of talk radio, which was mostly older people either getting directions to somewhere or complaining about politics, and he younged it up. He plays rock and roll as his bumper music. He talks in a way that is, he just put a younger face on it.
Would you say?
In terms of bringing talk radio into kind of a younger demographic.
Yeah.
We're really trying to attract, on our show, 25 to 54-year-old listeners. And it wasn't so easy 10 years ago. It's a lot easier today.
And to add to that, the age of America is going up. The baby boomer demographic, which is the biggest demographic in the country, is now in that kind of 35 plus range, 40 plus even, and they found as you get older, you stop listening to music and start listening to talk more. So we're starting to get that big dumping of that demographic into that age category all along into talk radio.
Is there a place where it was big in big cities? Any cities that
There's always been a talk station or stations in every big city. That hasn't been a new thing. It's just that now, because things are so specialized, where FM really specializes in certain formats with music, now AMs are really specializing in the kind of talk and the presentation that they do.
Well, if you take, as of the time we're taping this, if you take the combined market share of us and WGN, it's probably the biggest single format right now in radio in Chicago.
Yeah.
So,
So what are the benefits of being on talk radio? Now, I've thought of 1,000 since the beginning of the interview. The monkey thing comes to mind with playing music. But are there any benefits that you can think of?
Well, it feels like you're actually doing something. Now, I've worked music formats, and after about 6 days of that, you're like, okay, I play 20 minutes of music, and then I talk for 90 seconds, and I go back to another 20 minutes of music, and I thought, this is not why I got into radio. I want to talk, I want to hopefully present my personality that might be entertaining along the way, and you want to explore that. It's just more exciting.
Okay.
I could never, if I had to go back for whatever reason and just play records, I'd get out of the business. Because I just couldn't do it.
Okay. Any big impact it's had on Chicago talk radio? Any on the radio market in general? Any huge impact?
Yeah, I mean, it always does. Whenever there's a major breaking news story of national or local significance, you always see television cameras coming over to WLS and shooting what the people's reaction is, because it's probably the only, WLS is the only place in town where people actually can vent in a situation like that. And it gives the average person a chance to be heard just like all the other pundits and commentators and stuff on radio or TV.
And there are only three maybe, outlets of talk, and you've got 30-some stations playing music. And how much music
can you divide it up?
Fragment. I mean, these stations are now dovetailing to where they're kind of all playing the same thing one way or another. So you got to figure you only have a couple ways to go where you can hear talk. So that's what it is.
On the other side of the break, we'll talk more about their daily show.
Really?
Okay, welcome back to People in Perspective. When I went down in late October, I shot a bunch of stuff around the station, and Roe and Garry are going to walk us through it now.
Okay, there's the entrance to the station.
Right. That's very nice. Those are the big metal letters.
Notice our letters are metal and
Green room.
Kix's
Do we have a green
paper.
room?
Yeah, that's where we sat before
Oh.
you let us in.
This is the door to the broadcast center. That's,
A tape player.
yeah.
Now they record your show and play it back later, right?
Right. Well, they also record our show for best ofs and for legal purposes.
I don't know, the camera's kind of so
That's the-
jumpy, I can't tell what that is.
Control room looking into the broadcast
Wow.
studio.
Look at how complicated that is. It's like flying a 747.
This is where you mix in all your audio.
Yeah, this is where that's exactly
There are the
right.
call letters again.
Yeah.
Call letters.
Now you had this in front of you, Gary, and
did.
in front of all the sets. Is that where you control your headset volumes?
Yeah, I have my own little gizmo there. It's like student driver. I have my own brake pedal.
And the carts?
Yeah, I don't know what those are.
Now, those are cartridges. Yeah,
Those
that's
are microphones.
where they play the commercials.
Those are two goofy guys.
So,
Yeah.
so who runs what? You're running calls?
I run the telephone calls.
And I'm running at the mouth.
Right.
I just hope that he can drive it. If he passes out, then I have to take the steering wheel,
Yeah.
which happens more often than you would think. Somebody got wild with some stickers, as you can see. Let's put stickers all over the thing.
And this is where you punch up the calls,
Right.
right?
That's the phone board right there in front of you, and then there's a bunch of other buttons there that do a couple of other things, but we're not allowed to discuss those on TV. That's the. There's a board in the studio where we can look at it and find out what's coming up on the show after ours, so we can pre-promote it. Yeah.
And this is Jim Johnson.
Yeah,
Who?
he's in a soundproof booth off to the side.
And
So
those
he-
are his carts, so he can play news
Now
clips.
carts, that's like an 8-track cartridge, and that's what the sound comes over, either
But
music
they're
or voice.
4-track, I believe. Not like that
2.
matters. 2. Who cares?
And that's
Yeah.
where he was punching everything up.
That's what they look like.
Okay, I'm gonna get started again. Do you remember any really unusual, a funny story? Something went totally wrong? Just a funny story from the show?
From this show?
Yeah.
10 minutes ago, you mean?
No,
When we were-
not this show.
Oh,
Think positive for this show.
no, nothing. Here's the thing. Anything that goes wrong is still part of the bit if you have any wit about you.
work with it.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
what are you
yeah.
going to do? Unless
Yeah.
the thing starts on fire and you're ablaze. But beyond that, who cares?
So nothing technically wrong, nothing,
I don't
any
think-
unusual stories?
Well, we have things that go wrong almost all the time in terms of technical, especially if we're on remote.
Mm-hmm.
If we're out, we took our show to the Democratic Convention, and we did it from there for 4 days from a little broadcast area that we just kind of, the network threw together for us real quickly, and we had a number of technical problems out there.
But those
you
are
just
fun.
you play
you
with
look
it.
forward to them.
You
Yeah.
add them to the show.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, this equipment, it's made in other countries. It's not going to work that long.
No, we went down to Disney World with the show, and we had a number of technical
And Mickey
programming
Mouse
problems.
chewed through one of our cables.
Yeah,
We had
it's
to
terrible.
kill that mouse right there on the spot. Yeah, it was awkward, but we worked with it.
Sure.
Since you're on talk radio, you're liable to offend people. Is there any time where you
What?
offended a lot of
I
people?
hope so.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't go in with that goal. That's not
Well,
like, okay,
I
how
know
can we
that.
offend
Well,
people?
I do.
But you're not going to please everybody, as the cliche goes, so don't worry
Was
about
there
that.
just a time where overwhelming amount of people called in?
I don't know any particular subject that lit that up, but I'm sure some people get offended with anything you say.
He's in
Okay.
denial, actually.
Any
There are a
topics you
lot
won't
of times.
discuss? Any topics you just won't touch?
Not that
Well, you know what? There's one that's a talk radio staple that
Mm-hmm.
I hate, and that's abortion. I never want to discuss abortion on the show. Hate it, don't want to discuss it. Don't want to think about it. Just
because it comes down to nothing to discuss. You either are for it or you're against it, and
Right.
that's where it goes. You're not going to usually pull somebody one way or another.
yeah, so we're not going to be, you won't find that on our show at least.
Okay. So when you work in a pair every day, do you guys ever get into arguments? And how do you get out of them for people looking to go into the industry?
Well, it's like anything else. When you have a partnership, you have to be on the same page. You can disagree, certainly, that's part of the fun of it. But you have to find out how to get back into a rhythm if it's starting to disconnect your rhythm.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out what makes that go back
Okay.
at some point. I'm not saying that it can't be used as some kind of other energy to move you into a different direction, but you certainly can't keep going in another
Sometimes it helps
direction.
the show if you disagree
Certainly.
on something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's sometimes the best show.
Is when you two
we're,
are-
But you
on
got to work
opposite
through
sides.
it and move
Yeah.
it forward, otherwise you're screwed.
Right, and you can't let it get personal. I mean, if there's
Okay.
a time where we're disagreeing on something, and I don't think we've ever had that where it goes off the air.
Yeah.
We know where the bit ends.
You know
and
where to
where
stop.
real life
You know where the line
begins.
is. Okay, why don't we move on to ratings? Are you guys heavily influenced by your ratings? You said you were trying to aim the show at the baby boomers.
Don't answer this. Go to news.
You do what you got to do
To stay on the air.
but you don't consciously go, oh, this will get us ratings. In fact, you wouldn't even know what it does
Right.
in the long run. You just do what you do, and hopefully the ratings follow.
See, radio ratings are very different from television ratings. Television ratings, you have overnights, where you can see what you did that previous day and say, oh, well, that worked or that didn't because the ratings went up or went down that day. We really only get ratings in radio once every 3 months. So you only know over a 3-month span whether what you were doing was working or not. So it's very hard to adjust to that.
And you go in every day, hopefully, to do the best show you can do.
Right.
If that doesn't happen ratings-wise, well, I don't know what else you do. You probably do heavy lifting somewhere else.
Okay, I know in radio ratings they cut it into sections, men, so on
Right.
from here to here.
Demographics.
What's your highest group, your highest demographic?
You know what? I don't even know. I think we do. Our target audience is generally it's people between our age groups. I mean, that's for programming people to figure out and salespeople to figure out. We go in and we go, what do we think would sound good? And we're hoping to attract people who are from my generation, which is early 30s, to Gary's generation, which is mid 40s.
But we've only been together not even a year, so it's hard until you go through a whole year cycle of what's going on to get a perspective. Once you go through a year of ratings, then you're starting to see a pattern one way or another.
They tell us they want 25 to 54-year-old adults. They love that for some reason.
Okay, but doesn't always work.
Well, generally in what we do, it does. I
Yeah,
mean,
okay.
it's better. If it doesn't, we don't last very
You
long.
won an award for best afternoon show, entertaining show, right? So why do you two work so well together?
We were as surprised as you were, Scott, when we got the news. Believe me, this award, which is a Chicago award, it's new in Chicago, was judged in Washington and Atlanta. So it wasn't like people that knew us here. These people didn't even know us, which is complimentary, being that we were only together at that point about 6 months when they got those tapes. But awards, I don't put that much stock in awards.
Well, not just the awards, just why do you two work so well
Hopefully this is clicking on a lot of other levels, and that's what we're looking for. And I think if you've listened to the show when we started in February to now, which is the end of the year, 96, it's gone through a lot of stages and growing, I think, quite well.
Okay. So whether you're going to go on your own or go as a pair, do you have any plans for national syndication?
Oh, we have absolute plans, yeah.
You know, you got to think syndication, Scott,
Sure.
otherwise you're just spinning
So
your
you're-
wheels.
you're-
You know what? If you do well in the third largest city, you should
Yeah.
be happy. And if that happens for us, I'll be happy.
Some say it's the biggest radio
Yeah,
market around.
I know a lot of people get spun into this syndication thing. I don't really care about that. I don't have
This
any
is big
thoughts
enough.
about syndication and spinning out into that. This is
But
what
if
we're
it's come, you're going to jump.
Oh, yeah, I've been
it-
down that road, too. With
Yeah,
that.
you did the
I did
OJ
it.
show.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be more of a detriment than a help. I mean, especially if you're trying to do a show. If we are very successful in Chicago, the network always tries to syndicate you because that's a cost-effective way of creating programming for other markets. But the reality is that sometimes when you do that, your local show suffers.
Yeah.
And because you have to talk about things that are more broad-based, and we can talk about, because we're both from Chicago, we're probably the only guys right now working at this level who are both grew up here. You know, there are a lot of people from out of town.
Yeah.
And we rely on that. I mean, that's a big part of our presentation. Syndication would be screwy for that, but you know, if it came around, we're certainly not going to turn it down.
jump at it.
Yeah, but it's not something we're focusing on.
Yeah, it's not going to come around, Scott. I can tell you that right now. I know this business. It's screwy.
The last question, since this is a high school, do you have a message for teenagers?
Kids, stay off the drugs. That's the biggest
Unless
thing.
you're really depressed, and they have prescription drugs for that. For this high school specifically, paint the hallways. Okay? I'm walking through this high school here, and you've got giant chunks of paint that are ready to come down and hit somebody. How about some paint? Would it be so bad to paint the hallways?
Any
Now he's nervous.
inspirational words?
Scott's like, I thought to help kids. Yeah, kids, paint the high school.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a project.
Anything for the longer
Well,
run?
I know, all kidding aside, and I guess, Scott, you want that. We,
No, I like
we
fun
have
stuff.
no real message for the kids. Just whatever. If you want to make it
Do
in,
what you
in
wanna
the
do.
world, just put your nose to the The grindstone. Is that what they do? They
Yeah, no, you got to.
Is it the nose?
Yeah, I think you have to, this is where we tell the kids to believe in themselves.
Yeah.
This is a very important
bring
thing.
Jesus into their lives.
Right, and you have to believe whatever you do, just believe in
Actually,
yourself.
we just don't want you to wear those big baggy pants pulled down with your underwear sticking up and black lipstick. And outside of that, who cares?
Okay, we're going to wrap up the show after this last commercial break. Welcome back. Thank you, Roe and Garry, for joining me again. I'm going to give out some addresses just in case you want to reach RBTV. Our address, RBTV, First in Ridgewood, Riverside, Illinois, 60546. Attention, Scott Zach. Our phone line, 442-7500, extension 118. Fax, 447-5570. Email, rbtv2696@aol.com. Web address, http://www.tezcat.com/bulldog. For People in Perspective and RBTV, so long.
Yeah, you're right. When you see this, you go, why aren't they funnier? I mean, I'm going to switch right now because I want to see what's on the big channels. It didn't work out great when I got into radio because so many people are on pills in this business.
Oh, I mean, Garry wants to talk about himself for 4 hours, but I think, we got to talk about it.
Because I'd rather do that than go to a therapist. Ever been on a show where the cups and the candles match?
This will be good.
I help sick people in the morning before I go to work, and Roe just sleeps.
Yeah.
He gets up at noon.
Mm-hmm. About 12:30.
Yeah, and then heads over to the station, has lunch, and then at 1:45, he's kind of stumbling into the studio going, what are we going to talk about today? Gay marriages?